introduce himself at the beginning of his question.
Councillor Pullen, if you'd like to go first, and if you just introduce yourself for the benefit of the audio.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's Councillor Terry Pullen, Councillor for Moorland and Leader of the Labour Group on the City Council. My original question was about complaints I've received from people who want to renew their green wheelie bins. And it was particularly relating to renewing wheelie bins by phone. And I accept that online applications are a good way for most people to communicate with the council, but there are still lots of people who don't have access to IT or don't know how to use it. And I've had several complaints from residents in Moorland, and I have to say I'm quite astonished at the response I've had. One woman was told, "Can you go to the library?" Well, we don't have a library in Moorland. Another lady with no children was asked if she could get her son or daughter to sort it out for her. And I was quite surprised at the reply that one person got from the operator. "We have thousands of green bins and we simply don't have enough staff to answer the phones, particularly as many staff are working from home." It's not an ideal answer, is it? Do you not agree that this is really not acceptable and more has to be done to make sure that people who don't have access to IT can ring up the council and do things like this? To be honest, I mean, all people want to do is pay the council money so that they can have their green wheelie bin replaced.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. I know you're aware that this is a completely new system, just been introduced for as it's explained here in the initial answer, and I think it's fair to say there have been some teething troubles, and as a result of that, there are learning issues that we need to bear in mind taking this further forward. I think Officer Stark would be interested in giving a more detailed response.
Thank you. Yes, one of the challenges around the garden waste has been making sure that we get a consistent message that's come out. We've done a lot of training with our staff to make sure that they understand that some of our residents do need more support with that than others. We have held some additional training sessions with our staff who answer the phones to make sure that they are supporting our residents to pay their green bins. In the last couple of weeks, we've supported just over 600 of our residents renew their garden waste, and we are happy to help with anyone who wants to ring us up. We've revised our renewal reminder letter to take on board all of the feedback that we've had around kind of the changes to the system and how to get in touch if you need some support. And those letters will be hitting doormats probably tomorrow or Friday. So, as I say, we welcome all feedback so we can improve the process to make sure that we can support everyone with their green bin.
Councillor Hilton.
My name's Jeremy Hilton. I'm the leader of the Liberal Democrat group on Gloucester City Council and the councillor for Kingsholm and Wootton Ward. Question number 2 to the leader of the council. Thank you for the update. The bus station opened in October 2018, more than 5 years ago. It's taken ages to get to the point where the Gloucester window panels are finished and ready to be installed. Is there anything you have learned about the process that you would not do again? Because it really is far too long to get the public art installed in a building that we've opened 5 years ago.
I think the first thing I would say I've learned is make sure you don't have an episode of pandemic in the middle of getting all this done, because that's caused significant delays, huge delays, not only in terms of getting everything organised and bringing people together to agree what the panel should look like, but also in respect of the manufacturers who have taken a very long time to get round to getting all the panels manufactured. Now they are manufactured, now they're ready to be installed. We're just waiting for agreement between two third parties, i.e. the manufacturers and Stagecoach, to get them installed. So, yeah, let's remember not have a pandemic.
Question number 3, I think it's to you again, Richard, and thanks for your update. The budget papers of 2016-17 shows a revenue support grant from the government of £1.86 million. For the next year, it's just £273,000. That is a drop of £1.5 million, a substantial cut in government funding. You must be really disappointed with your government. Surely you are.
I think everybody's disappointed when they get less money. But I think we all have to recognise that there is less money available for the local government sector. And we aren't the only ones who've suffered in this way. It's been right across the local government sector. So I don't have any particular disappointment in any individuals or any ministers, but I am disappointed that we've got less money than we used to have.
Yeah, I'm disappointed as well. Number 4, again to you, I think. This is regarding Spread Eagle Court, and would you not agree that on the completion of the forum and the Whitefriars apartments, that Spread Eagle Court cannot be left to slowly decay, unoccupied and unloved, which it is at the moment, and that we need to redouble our efforts and engage with the owner to get something done about this important, prominent building on Northgate Street?
I agree it would be an eyesore in that location, especially when the Forum and Whitefriars is complete, because it is unloved, as you say, but it is owned by somebody else. And our officers can work with them and work with them and work with them and get nowhere because it's their property and not ours. I am aware that officers have made many attempts to contact the owner and probably succeeded in contacting him, but he's not yet prepared to do anything with that building, although I'd love to see something done about it as soon as possible.
I believe this supplementary is to Hannah. Much of the 98,000 square feet in the King's Walk shopping centre will have been let for the new Primark store, which is on Eastgate Street. However, 15,500 square feet remain unoccupied, and it's a substantial amount of ground floor retail space which this council could derive an income from, and we know what the finances of this council are. So every square foot that we rent out is extra money for the council and helps balance our books. Have you plans to speed up new lettings?
It's really important to understand that quite often the letting of one unit can then be a catalyst for other interest, and the fact that we have the We Do Play opening, I believe, in half-term week, which is going to be the Laser Quest component before Putt Putt Noodle then opens in March, is definitely, in my opinion, going to be a catalyst for further interest into the King's Walk and then on into the Forum. I know that officers, along with our external agents, are working with lots of retailers as well as leisure and food and beverage providers who have great interest in Gloucester. It is just sometimes a case of the timing as to when they can commit, and I think the opening of things such as the University of Gloucestershire campus in the old Debenhams will definitely assist with that activity.
Thank you. My final supplementary, number 6, to Stephanie. The budget papers for 2016-17 show a new homes bonus income, £3.8 million. That's £3 million more than we're getting today. It was based on match funding for council tax from each property over a 6-year period. Would you not agree with me that the new homes bonus scheme should have been maintained rather than being phased out? The finances of this council would be considerably healthier if it had been maintained.
Sorry. Yeah, as the name says, it was a new homes bonus, and it is being phased out. But we have an incentive to build houses no matter what for our residents, and so yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Councillor Condor. Councillor Wilson. As previously, Councillor Wilson, if you'd introduce yourself.
Okay, for the avoidance of doubt, I'm not Greg Moore. No, he's a great guy. Questions 8 and questions 9. I'll sort of do a supplementary, I'll combine the two, because the essential thread through all three of my questions was the quality of the communication between the council and the residents. So with regards to Orchard Park, first of all, I'm really pleased that the council has changed its mind and the service won't be cancelled after all. But I'm wondering, was there any engagement with the residents before this decision was made to try and resolve the difficulties mentioned in the answer? And question 9, why were the residents not informed of this decision until they tried to renew the green bin charges?
My understanding is that the residents were well aware in advance that there was difficulties in collection of their green waste because of the narrowness of that road and the difficulty in the lorry going down it and turning around and coming back out of it. Apparently, in the last year, there had been numerous problems, and I'm told that the residents were well aware of those numerous problems. But the other point is that I don't think a final decision had been made until Ubico did an investigation, which was on the 1st of February. So I think the fact that some residents might have tried to renew their green waste subscription before that had taken place, before that investigation had taken place, was perhaps causing some confusion, for which I'm sorry. It should not have happened. I believe that they should have been communicated with if there was a threat that they would not be able to get their green waste collected.
Thank you for that. Actually, don't think I said who I was. I said who I wasn't. So I'm Declan Wilson, the deputy leader of the Lib Dem group and a Hugglecote councillor. So regards to number 10, I welcome the answer, part of the answer which says all feedback is welcome and will be used to improve the processes and our communications. I spent the afternoon, this afternoon with a resident, helping her with the process of paying by phone. So I will have some feedback to give on that. But the supplementary question is, why are residents required to give their payment details over the phone when the councillor already has these details on file? I.e. the same information is used to collect council tax via direct debit. So why do we have to go through the process of asking for those details again?
The answer to your question is that these systems aren't integrated, and in order to set up any form of payment mechanism, customers need to be informed of what they're paying for. We are working on all of our on all of our payment systems to deliver the best service we possibly can to our residents, and we'll continue to work on this. It's very difficult to join up services such as council tax. That's a statutory service, and we collect details for those, and then have a non-statutory service like garden waste. There's quite a lot of complexity behind the scenes to make that happen. But I do take your point that if we could streamline and make it more straightforward, it would probably be advantageous to our residents.
Thank you. Councillor David Brown.
Yes, thank you for your answer.
Could you please
to,
introduce yourself?
11. It's particularly. My name is Councillor David Brown. I'm councillor for Hugglecote. Yes, thank you for your answer. to question 11, I was really quite interested to know that I walked an extra 320 metres, diversion of 320 metres both ways, but no supplementary, thank you. On question 12 about Longsmith Street multi-storey car park, I'm surprised you haven't had lots of emails and things from residents. Maybe you have, but it's really, when I come into Gloucester, certainly on a Wednesday in the morning, it's very difficult to find a parking space, and there must be some connection with the fact that Longsmith is closed. Great things are happening. There's an initial survey, identify the level of work. You've gone into some detail there. But really my question was, when do you think it will be open? Do we have any idea at all when it will be open?
So I wouldn't be able to give you a date of when the building would be reopened until obviously we get a decision on what work needs to be done and that specification, because I'm not sure of the timeline of that work that's needed. So it would be remiss of me to give you a commitment to a date. What I would say, just reference your comment about difficulty in finding a car parking space. The car parking team is actually monitoring utilisation of the car parks across the city. And even with the closure of Longsmith Street, we are still under capacity, as in there are still car parking spaces available. So we are working with the parking team for them to also promote some of maybe the lesser known car parks, which I think we're all creatures of habit. We've all intended to go to Car Park X for many years and hence don't necessarily know about other locations which would also service our needs well. So we are going to do a proactive effort to increase that knowledge across residents and visitors to Gloucester as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't really have any question, supplementary on question 14, except a comment that my recollection was that last year the number of responses received about the budget consultation was in the region of 90. So it's gone up 50%, you could say. But really it's gone up from, taking the population of Gloucester, 0.0075% to 0.001. So it is disappointing, really, these numbers. And you know, your answer is social media, tried that sort of thing. But what my question really was, we knew the figures were really low last year, and low this year. What was done different to last year to try and bring up this public response?
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor David Brown. So in the time that I've held this portfolio, I think the highest amount of responses we've had has been in the mid 250s, something around that area. And you're quite right, the lowest that we have is circa 90. I think it was 92 off the top of my head. Unfortunately, this is quite a trend that's seen across a lot of district authorities. It isn't something that's unique to Gloucester. We will look at ways of promoting further moving forward, but equally what I would say is that a plea to all elected councillors within Gloucester. Appreciate that we all speak to residents regularly. We, dare I say, are going into canvassing season. We also deliver newspapers, in-touches, spotlights, whatever you may call them, to people's houses. So that's another way of us trying to encourage residents of Gloucester to give their sort of views on things such as the budget, but also the consultation page on the Gloucester City website, which is updated with all consultations that are being undertaken by the authority at any time. So it would be great if we could have a group effort to try to encourage more residents to have their say. And I'd be more than happy if that percentage you quoted in years to come became 10%, 15%, 20% of Gloucester residents were engaged in giving us their views.
Technically, we've reached the 15-minute point, but I'm looking at Councillor Joanne Brown, and she's looking really upset, so I'll give her the opportunity to come and ask supplementary questions.
Yes, thank you. I'm Councillor Joanne Brown, Councillor for Barnwood. My question was a response into enforcement of fly posting. Fly posting can be an unsightly mark on an area. I am pleased the council will deal with it. Can't even read my writing now, sorry. With it from the answers. The City Council will deal with it wherever it occurs, i.e. lamppost and utility boxes. When would the City Council not enforce?
If they have an opportunity to enforce, I expect them to enforce. I'm sure that they would do. There's not that many there's not many cases that we've heard of so far. 14 reports of fly posting, but if they have an opportunity to enforce, I would expect them to. But if the fly posting is simply removed when we contact the owner of that fly posting, then that's job done. We don't need to do any enforcement in that situation. Just where where they don't remove it, that's the only case that we should enforce. But I would expect them to do so if there's an opportunity to do so, as we do with littering, dog fouling, and any other incident like that.
Thank you.
Okay, we can now move on to substantive business. The first item is the climate change strategy. And that's my report. So the report is to introduce a climate change strategy and action plan, which is to be considered by Cabinet, who will recommend to Council that the report be adopted and issued for consultation. In 2019, the Council declared a climate emergency, committing to reaching net zero emissions across its own activities by 2030 and across the wider district by 2050, subsequently moving that date to 2045. Since then, it has produced a carbon baseline and a tackling climate change roadmap in 2020, a green travel plan in 2022, and made further sustainability commitments in the 2022-2024 Council Plan, namely building a greener, fairer, better Gloucester. Following the pandemic, which had a major impact on the emissions profile of the Council, it was felt prudent to produce a new climate change strategy incorporating decarbonisation targets and establishing a new emissions baseline. The Council also joined the Global Covenant of Mayors, which required the Council to deliver its first climate risk and vulnerability assessment, requiring the Council to reduce the Council's exposure to climate risks from global warming. WSP consultants were appointed in March 2023 to help deliver the CRVA and climate change strategy. WSP met with members of the Climate Change Member Working Group in April 23, the Cabinet member and lead officers on multiple occasions before producing the first draft, which was shared with the Member Working Group in August 2023. The second draft was later shared with the same groups in October 23. The final draft is now ready for adoption by the Council and to be put out for consultation. There is considerable detail in section 4 of the report about the Council's emissions baseline, with a number of suggestions about how the Council might approach decarbonisation in the latter stages of section 4. Section 5 considers priority risks for the Council resulting from modelled climate change. Although the climate change emergency was first called in 2019, we have not been idle since. But the production of this strategy now gives us the tools and ideas to maximise the actions we can take, thus enabling the greatest reach and the most impact to reduce and offset our emissions. I want to thank all those who took part in the programme of works to produce the first climate change strategy, WSP, senior officers and members. We now have a comprehensive way forward. The recommendations that came from overview and scrutiny regarding member briefings and roadshows and other consultation are accepted, as officers were able to commit to them at that time. The third recommendation relating to long-term political commitment will have to wait until after the election to ensure that the appropriate measures are taken. Thank you. Open it up to any comments from members. Councillor Chambers.
Yes, I'd just like to say that in relation to the domestic houses, many of the registered providers that provide our residents with homes have already started working hard to retrofit and install renewable heating measures across their stock, which will help achieve this 50% figure.
Thank you. Councillor Padilla.
I'm happy with the adoption of the strategy and being a subject to public consultation, but let me commend the work being done by the Warm and Well Advice Line, which has been providing free, impartial and local home energy advice to households in Gloucestershire. This scheme has been in place since 2001. what I'm saying here is, as we adopt the strategy, I think there's also a need to up our campaign towards making everyone aware of the benefit of understanding climate change better, its impacts, and I'm sure that empowering residents to take meaningful action will kind of mitigate this problem. The need by residents to understand the science behind climate change, its impacts, and the urgency of addressing it, I think is also kind of crucial as we proceed along this line. I think that's all from me, and it's just the emphasis that we should also kind of up our campaign to make more residents aware.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
I wasn't actually going to say something, but with some of our older buildings, which I tend to sort of have to run, the museum, Guildhall, that sort of thing, we are constantly looking at ways of saving energy and making them more efficient, which will lower the greenhouse gases and all that throughout the city. And especially now with, say, GR1, who's we're going to put in progress some sort of measures to improve the efficiency of heating a swimming pool and saving energy that way. So these measures are ongoing and will be vital to us getting down to our negative sort of overall strategy, should we say.
Thank you. I think the whole point of this this report is that it allows us to start to focus on those areas where we can do something quickly. A lot of this will change with technology going forward. The focus that government puts on this, which is what we need. We need the funding to deliver things at a local level. So as time moves on, that will become ever more urgent, and I hope that we'll see that focus shift from the government level. So are we all happy with the recommendations? Thank you. Move on to the money plan and budget proposals. This report reviews the Council's money plan for recommendation to Council. Cabinet is asked to resolve to recommend to Council that the proposals included in the report be approved, noting that consultation has been undertaken on the proposals. Council will be asked to approve those proposals. The Chief Finance Officer must report on the following matters. Firstly, the robustness of the estimates made for the purposes of the calculations. And secondly, the adequacy of the proposed financial reserves. He has confirmed these. The money plan sets out the Council's strategic approach to the management of its finances and represents indicative budgets and council tax levels for the medium term. It covers the general fund revenue budget, the capital programme and earmarked reserves. It also comments on the significant financial risks facing the Council in the forthcoming years and explains what the Council is doing to reduce those risks. The main objectives of the money plan are to, firstly, explain the financial context within which the Council is set to work over the medium term. Secondly, to provide a medium-term forecast of resources and expenditure. Thirdly, to identify the financial resources needed to deliver the Council's priority outcomes in line with the Council's plan. Fourthly, to achieve a stable and sustainable budget capable of withstanding financial pressures. Fifthly, to achieve a balanced base budget, minimising the use of balances to meet recurring baseline spending, with the general fund balance being maintained at the minimum of 10% of net expenditure by the end of the plan period. Next, where possible, additional investment and spending decisions will be made to reflect Council priorities and strategic commitments, with disinvestment and budget savings being made in non-priority areas. And finally, to ensure capital financing is established at a level that maintains ongoing robustness in the capital programme. I'll now invite Councillor Norman to go into some greater detail.
Thank you, Leader. So as Cabinet are aware, local government continues to face a tough financial outlook, with funding pressures set to continue. Alongside current high inflation and the implications of the cost of living crisis, the Council continues to see significant pressure on our revenue budgets. The plan in front of Cabinet is being made as the best estimate on those ongoing implications for the Council during these challenging times. As per 5.6 of the report, the local government finance settlement for year 24-25 provided Gloucester with an increase in revenue support grant of 17,000, but a reduction in services grant of 125,000. But we did receive an additional year of New Year's bonus allocation, which equates to 811,000 versus this year's allocation of 217. Since those figures were announced in December, Gloucester has also received a small amount of additional funding, which totals 41,000 split between the funding guarantee and service grant lines. The opening position of year 24-25 shows a general fund balance of 500,000, with the general fund returning to 10% of revenue budget by year 28-29. Year 26-27 also draws down from the business rates reserve due to the expected business rates reset, hence the importance of protecting this reserve to limit the impact of this authority. Appendix 2 highlights the baseline budget pressures and efficiencies, but also the income generation for the council over the term of this money plan. The cost of homelessness prevention is currently a key pressure, along with interest costs. In relation to income generation, the provision of direct cremations and also an increased return from the property investment strategy for the food dock commencing in the upcoming financial year is noted. Appendix 3 highlights budget savings for the upcoming year. Within my own portfolio, we will deliver 85,000 saving from the relocation of the customer services and housing face line appointments to Eastgate. We will also look at insourcing of our parking enforcement, and this is aiming to deliver 25,000 in saving. Into future years, the council are then targeting additional savings or income generation from the work of the Head of Transformation and Commissioning. Finally, I'd like to place on record the thanks, I think, for all of my cabinet, to all staff that have assisted with the creation of the draft budget and money plan proposals. But a specific thanks and highlight should go to our Section 151 officer. Greg is fundamental to many projects in this council, and he provides excellent support to myself and my colleagues. And I'm sure he's doing the same for opposition councillors as they look at their budget amendments. Thank you.
Could I please invite members to make any comments? Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Leader. As I'm sure everybody is aware that there's been significant challenges, and not least from my portfolio with the homeless prevention, as Councillor Norman mentioned, and the council suffers cost of living crisis as well. We all suffer with that. And I think the work that has gone into this, with the savings that have been made, that really limits any impact on our residents whilst protecting those that are most vulnerable, is to be commended. And again, I wanted to say thanks to Greg specifically for all his hard work and everybody else's in the team.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Leader. It's the most complicated thing that we do as a council, is trying to make the budget match and balance. And my hat's off to you, Greg, and all your staff. It's gratifying that you're there because we have confidence in what he says. Whether it's good or bad, to be perfectly honest, but it is good in these very, very hard times that we come out and we've got a balanced budget. And I just want to thank everybody, including the officers opposite as well, because they've all worked very, very hard.
Thank you, Councillor Padilla.
I think the draft money plan provides for a good and responsive draft communities budget, which prioritizes the needs of the community, allocates funds efficiently, and adapts to changing circumstances. So I welcome its adoption. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All happy to accept the recommendations? Thank you very much. Move on to item 9, which is the suspension of purchase in reserve grave spaces. Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Leader. So the council is aware of the importance of use of burial land to accommodate all faiths and beliefs of our city residents. The council owned 2 cemeteries, one in Treadworth Road, which was closed to new burials in the 90s and can only be used for purchase in reserve burials and reopens into existing graves. We also have Coney Hill, which at present is an open cemetery to all residents of any area in or outside of our city boundary. Gloucester City Council have been offering purchase in reserve grave rights since the 1970s, but due to only having approximately 3 to 5 years of burial space left at Coney Hill, we need to put on hold this purchase right until additional burial land is located. The council are already actively seeking additional burial land to continue to offer residents the option of burial, and we hope to have secured that land by December 2025. Failure to put on hold the purchase in reserve graves whilst we look to secure new burial land will put significant pressure on our burial land and the cemetery service, and we're able to offer, and therefore hence why you can understand the reason for this recommendation, and hope it's something that you can support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to Cabinet members. Councillor Lewis.
I think this is just a pragmatic way of doing things. I suspect, to be perfectly honest, in the future, maybe burials will transform even more into cremations, which will free up space. But that's just a natural trend. I think my generation want to be cremated, and my parents want to be buried. So that sort of thing. But yes, it's very pragmatic, and I welcome it.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think all I would say is it's very common sense, but ultimately, unless we find space relatively easily, the cost of burial will skyrocket because there'll be limited supply. But in the meantime, in the short term, I think this is a very sensible way forward. So I'm happy to support. Can I see support from members? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to lease of land at Hempstead Meadow, which is actually a joint report from the Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure and the Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources. I think Councillor Hannah Norman is going to lead on this.
Thank you, Leader. So, Cabinet, this paper outlines how the authority can formalise an offering at the Hempstead Meadow site. You will recall that we previously agreed to enter into a licence arrangement to pilot the operation of the site as a car boot after the use of this site as a COVID-19 testing centre. The licence in this pilot provides for the council to receive an income at a fixed rate throughout the term with no drops should the car boot not be able to open for any reason. During this pilot, income has been consistent, even with the car boot having to close on several occasions due to flooding. In the future, granting a lease on commercial terms will give the council both consistent income in the same way, but also give us the ability to have more robust terms in the lease. As the paper highlights, the neighbours on the site are broadly satisfied with the current licence arrangements. This paper was discussed at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Monday, and I believe it was broadly supported. And the paper asks for authority to be given to the investment manager in conjunction with both my portfolio and Councillor Lewis's portfolio to undertake a competitive process to enter into a lease for a term of up to 15 years with 5-year breaks for the identified area at Appendix 1 of the report. And also that site conditions be evaluated and recommendations be made so that the site can operate all year round. The final recommendation is of the paper is that the current operator is given a 9-month extension to their licence to enable the car boot sale to stay operational whilst the competitive process and offering a lease for the identified area is undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, the Hempstead Meadow is a fantastic resource, but it's a complicated and quite fragile one because of the flooding, and it's in the floodplain, and it is, you know, it's quite susceptible to sort of damage and stuff like that. So to give the current operator a 9-month extension is very pragmatic. He's done a reasonably good job down there. We've had steady income. But I think it's now the case to actually formalise it, put in a proper lease, and so that conditions can be set out properly, which involves the maintenance of the site and this sort of thing. But yeah, I'm quite happy to recommend all of the recommendations that we go forward from here.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think this is a really sensible decision and it's a long-term solution. which receives this site receives a great deal of interest from residents, always has, and I'm sure you've all had your inbox full of questions of when we're going to have a car boot sale open. So yeah, I think it's really, really good, and ONS were supportive, and I think residents will be completely supportive of this decision.
Thank you. All happy then to accept the recommendations? Yes, okay. We'll move on to the final item, which is the cultural strategy update. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Leader. The strategy is a mechanism which enables us to focus on our cultural vision for 2021 to 2026. This enables us to ensure partnerships, funding streams and activity can be greatly aligned for the best impact for the city. Some of the highlights are both the Guildhall and the Cultural Trust are now NPOs, National Portfolio Organisations, which guarantees funding for 3 years, which is great, gives them stability. In turn, embeds the culture in the city plans. With Phil Heinsohn now the new CEO of the Culture Trust, I think we can have confidence that the trust is also in good hands now. And as I say, he's got the funding for the next 3 years, so that's great. Other organisations who are integral to the offerings are Strike a Light, which is also an NPO, GL4, Culture Matson, 100 Heroines, just to name a few. The festivals and events have been very busy, and 2024 is set to be even busier, if it could be. One thing is for sure, culture, if done right, has a great social value, bringing communities within the city together and also the wider area. So I recommend this report of the progress made against the strategy, and I think it's a very good report.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I think I have to say that the amount of money that's being invested in Gloucester from all around the country into Gloucester's cultural delivery and opportunity, I think it says, great things for the future of Gloucester in that regard. So I welcome this report. I welcome all the things that have been said within the report about that investment and how it's being used to support culture. And I personally am happy to accept the recommendations. Councillor Padilla.
I find the cultural strategy characterized by its openness and flexibility and inclusivity. We hope that its strategic and inclusive approach will also see events happening in the suburbs, in Gloucester, and not just in the city centre area. It's all in all of the 18 wards represented by different members here, and not just in the city centre area. Speaking of inclusivity, though, perhaps next in line can be us coming up with an EDI strategy, or an equality, diversity, inclusion strategy, which would advocate for the creation and enforcement of policies that actively promote diversity, equal opportunities, and inclusivity in the city. With the EDI strategy, initiatives to remove barriers to participation, create accessible environment, and foster a culture that values and respects the differences among our residents. All this we will see if another strategy in the form of equality, diversity, inclusion be also adopted in due time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think this is a great strategy in looking at what's been achieved so far and what's still to be achieved. And as the Leader mentioned, that it's bringing investment from all over the country into our city for our residents. And as Councillor Lewis mentioned, some of those organisations, some of them are led by people coming into our city and sharing their knowledge and experience of things they've done, such as 100 Heroines, which they started over in London. And some of them are set up by local residents for the community, knowing the communities really well. So there's such a balance of culture going on in the city, and it's great to see.
Thank you. All happy to accept the recommendations? Thank you very much. I think that concludes our business tonight. Thank you for your attendance and contributions. Thank you to officers for contributions and attendance as well. Thanks very much. Good night.